job? All right. I'm going to announce that you have your parking pass validation. I am, but you can raise your hand, Bernie. We'll just wait for Jim to come back with the plaque. I don't know. There's one. Carl, can you see if there's anybody we're waiting for? Oh, sorry. Can you see if there's anybody out there we're waiting for? No. I'll just wait for Jim. He's bringing some gifts back, and then we'll get started. I don't have any idea. Had you not mentioned it, I would have forgot all about it. Carol, did you see Jim out there? Okay. Here he comes. He's running. Okay. I think we can get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the 2018 ASQ Inspection Division Conference, Quality Bridge to the Future. My name is George Cutler. I'm chair-elect for the Inspection Division. I'll be taking over for Jim Spishiger in January 2019. Today we'll start at 10:15 and runs to 4:15. We have two great quality tracks, 5 sessions each, 2 workshops, core quality planning tools, and managing risk in calibration. Anyone who is attending the core quality planning tools will have an orange dot on their name badge. Anyone attending the managing risk in calibration will have a green dot on their badge. We have 2 tours going on today. Gibson Guitar Company and Graceland. The Gibson Guitar Company will have a green star on their badge, and Graceland will have a gold star on their badge. Everybody got that? Lunch will be served at noon on the 3rd floor. Parking. The parking pass you received yesterday will expire today. You'll need to get a new one from Bernie. Bernie, raise your hand. Bernie will provide a validation for parking for today. And at 3 o'clock in the exhibit hall, there's door prizes will be handed out to people attending the conference, and you have to be present to receive that award. I'm told there's cars and travel, and don't take it from me. So let's get started. This morning's keynote speaker will share with us how BMW manages, monitors, measures, assesses, and improves the quality across the organization. Eric has served as Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt at BMW's manufacturing in Spartansburg, South Carolina. He holds a doctorate in solid-state inorganic chemistry from Rutgers University, served on the executive committee of the Board of Trustees for the Southern Association of Colleges, and was ASQ chairman of the Board of Directors in 2017. Please welcome Eric Hayler.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Friday. George, thank you very much for the introduction. I'd like to thank Jim, the leadership team of the inspection division for inviting me here, and thank you to everybody who's worked so hard to put this conference together. Thank you very much. The work that you do is why ASQ is what it is today. I have a exciting update to my personal resume in the last couple of weeks. I'll just share with you very briefly. As of about 2 weeks ago, after having put in 20 years of service with BMW and after having reached a certain age, I was able to retire. So thank you very much. And so I finished my work on a Friday, and on Monday I began work for a small startup company. You may have heard of it. It's called Amazon. And so in my new role, I'll be coordinating continuous improvement activities across the customer service division. One of the exciting parts about my new role is that because my team is spread out throughout North America, I could live anywhere, so I just chose to stay where I was. So I live at home now. I work at home, which is very, very nice. And one of the nice things about that is that keeps me well connected to my BMW community, and it also allows me to come back and teach some classes on an occasional basis. So some of the information I have for you today may be all of 2 weeks old, but I think that's within 3.4 parts per million defects. So, you know, I love being around people who get that joke. All right, so in this session this morning, I'd like to tell you a little bit about BMW and how we manage quality and continuous improvement. Would like to start off by sharing with you a little bit about BMW. I think everybody knows we make cars, but there's probably a few things that you don't know about what BMW does. Give you an overview of BMW, a little bit of an overview of our plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I was talking to Bill last night, and he was sharing with me that he had a chance to do a tour of our factory back when it was relatively young. And we started off pretty modest. We were making just a few cars a day. There were 600 associates. As a matter of fact, my wife was one of the first associates that was hired on to work at the plant. And then we've grown up into this after multiple expansions over several years, over almost 25 years. We've now become the largest plant in the BMW network. And, by the way, we're the only BMW manufacturing plant inside of the U.S. and North America. So the plan is to give you an overview of BMW, talk to you about quality, and specifically in Plant Spartanburg, talk to you about our product quality index. So a car rolls off the end of the assembly line. Is it a good car? Is it a bad car? How do you know? So I'll tell you a little bit about how we assess that. Talk a little bit about our balanced scorecard approach to quality. So BMW aspires to be the vehicle of choice for everyone, to be the ultimate driving machine. So how do we take that and translate that into targets down on the shop floor? Talk to you about our VPS system, Value Added Production System. That's our version of TPS, Toyota Production System, very similar. Our Lean Six Sigma program and our Create program. Create for us is Kaizen Office and also our Associate Suggestion System. And by the way, I'm happy to take any questions along the way, so just holler. Here's a map of the BMW Group and our production footprint. You can see that in North America, our only facility is in Spartanburg. The Moses Lake facility is a carbon fiber joint venture, which we recently divested in. But carbon fiber is very important to our business and it's very important to our future. We have several models that are made of carbon fiber composite, the BMW i3 and i8, for example. Of course, BMW, Bayerische Motorenwerk, is a German company, and so most of our big facilities are located in Germany, very specifically in Bavaria. And so we have large plants in Dingolfing, in Munich, and then also in Regensburg. and then also a number of support facilities as well. The BMW group includes not only BMW, but also includes Mini and also includes Rolls-Royce. And those facilities are in the UK. So we have, in Goodwood, we have Rolls-Royce production, and in Oxford, we're making BMW Minis. Around the world, you'll see these other facilities color-coded in blue. Those are final assembly plants. We call them CKD, SKD operations, semi-knockdown and completely knockdown. And so this is where we're sending painted bodies, but also parts, and the assembly of the vehicle is done in those home countries. Last year, BMW sold nearly 2.5 million vehicles, and the majority of those were BMWs. The rest of those, there's a breakdown between Mini, Rolls-Royce, and then also motorcycles. 2.1 million vehicles for BMW, and then only 3,300 or so Rolls-Royces. But if you take into account the price of a Rolls-Royce, that's not an insignificant number. So we are continuing to grow. In the last year and a half, we've undergone our most aggressive new product launch campaign in the history of the brand. We've had as many as 40 launches over time, and you could see some of the launches that were recently completed last year and into the beginnings of this year, and it's continuing on even now. We're right in the middle of the launch of the new BMW X7. If you didn't know, our plant in Spartanburg is the we have the X competency. Those are our SUVs. We call them SAVs, sports activity vehicles. SUVs and crossover vehicles, so BMW X3, 4, 5, 6, and then soon to be X7, and that's going to be our big one. Not too long ago, there were pictures released, and so if you go online, you should be able to see more pictures of the BMW X7. This is an overview of BMW's technology strategy. It's called ACES. ACES stands for autonomous, connected, electrified, and shared. And so if you look at, like, say, connected via the Internet of Things, connecting vehicles to each other, communicating with other drivers on the road for improved safety and efficiency. Shared services, for example, shared vehicles. If you go to most major cities, you go and you find that there are racks of bicycles, and you can go and you can scan your credit card and you can borrow a bicycle and you can return it there or at another designated location. And then they also have scooter programs and things like that. What if we did that with cars? This is what BMW is piloting. So in several cities around the world, you can go up if you're a registered user and you have your cell phone. You've got your information. You've got a license. You've got your credit card information in there. You can walk up to a vehicle. You can put in that vehicle's information. You can get a release code. It opens up, and you can drive it away. What a great way to get people to try your product, huh? Let's see. On the electrified side, we aspire to have more than 500,000 electrified vehicles on the road by the end of next year. In 2017, we were 100,000. I think at this point we're in the $250,000 unit range. Some of the models that you see up there, the BMW i3. It's a cute little car and relatively affordable. There are hybrid versions of that one, and there are also all-electric versions. And then if you were at the 2017 World Conference in Charlotte, you may have seen the i8 that I brought. It was in the automotive division booth. It was a blue version of that one. Those are a lot of fun to drive. I got to bring that one to the conference and back. Several other models in production and under development right now. For example, we have an electric hybrid of the BMW X6 crossover vehicle. On the autonomous vehicle side, I think this is something that really captures people's imaginations, and it's kind of like right at our doorstep, and people are wanting to jump to the ultimate end conclusion, which is that vehicles completely drive themselves, and that, of course, is what the end state will look like. Is this going to happen? It really is, but not this year, and probably not next year either. But it is on the way. And what most people don't realize are all the necessary steps we need along the way. So for example, at the very beginning, regular cars when I grew up back in the 70s, There was no assistance whatsoever. There was no computer in the car. Over time, we introduced small little features, and things like cruise control ended up becoming part of what it is that we expect our vehicle to do. But little did we know that that was the first little step towards autonomous driving. So assisted, feet off, hands off. Another example of feet off driving is controlled descent. So when the vehicle, particularly the SUVs, if you're going downhill and once it reaches a certain declining angle, then the automatic descent control will kick in. And if you take your foot off the gas, it will then, or foot off the brake, it will then coast at a very controlled speed down until you reach a level field again. And the first time I tried that, I was so nervous. I was sitting up on a hill about this high, and the instructor at the class I was in said, take your foot off. I was like, ugh. She's like, take your foot off. I finally took it off, and sure enough, it works. So progressing on to the point where we can take our eyes off the road for a short period of time, finally being able to do other things and other tasks while you're in the vehicle, ultimately having the vehicle drive itself and having the people in the car, the passengers, not even necessarily needing a driver's license. Can you imagine in the future just being able to say, take Johnny to school, and it just goes? I think I'd like that. There is a promotional vehicle for the i8 and future technology that's posted on YouTube. And this video, first time I saw it, I found it really impactful. It showed a guy waking up in the morning at his beautiful home, and he gets in his i8, and the i8 drives him to work, and he chooses the road for him and talks to him the whole time, and he's taking video conference calls and things. And then at the end, he gets out in the city, and he's going up the stairs to work, and he turns around to the car, and he goes, okay, come back and pick me up at 3 o'clock. And the car goes, sure, Dave, see you then. And the car drives away. And in that moment, I realized, gosh, it's not just that we're going to have the convenience of vehicles driving for us, but in the future, who's going to care about parking lots? Who's going to care about parking decks and where they are? The cars will just go park them. They can go outside of the city, go park themselves, and come back later when they need you. A lot of things are going to change. A little bit about BMW in South Carolina. We have about 10,000 employees at the moment, people working in our plant, and it's estimated that for every person we have working internally, there are 3 others working externally full-time on BMW parts somewhere in our supply chain. Out of those, probably about 2/3 are located in our immediate area, most of them in South Carolina. So again, estimated 31,000 jobs as a result of our factory being where it is in South Carolina, which represents 1.3% of the workforce of South Carolina. And that means a couple of different things. It means, one, that the state loves us because we employ lots of people, but 2, that means we consume a large part of the workforce, and we need talent, and so it's important for us to grow the talent that we need. Here's a before and after kind of picture. This is where we started way back when, 600 jobs, producing just a few cars at a time, and at the time we were making the BMW 3 Series. Bill, by the time you got there, we were making the Z3 Roadster, which was, I think, about a year or two into our history there. These days, we've gone from 1.2 million square feet to 6.4 million square feet, producing 1,400 vehicles a day. They are just rolling off the end of the assembly line. And they're all BMWs, and they're all of premium quality. Let's see, a little bit more of the history. Started off with the 318, started producing the Z3. BMW models run in 7-year cycles, and so after 7 years, they get completely redone. And so, for example, we are in the 3rd generation of the X5. How many of you own a BMW? Oh, we're going to have to change that. Well, if you know anything about BMWs, we have model codes. So E53, F15, and G05, the like. So we're in the middle of producing the 3rd generation of the X5 right now. By the time we got to 2006, 12 years or so into our history, we had produced 1 million vehicles. We had changed the name of the Z3 to the Z4. We had changed it so much by then. It was only another 6 years until we had made 2 million vehicles. 3 million came 3 years later, and then it only took another 2 years or so for us to hit our 4th million, so constantly expanding. But we are actually 2 factories on one site, and sometimes we refer to it that way, Plant 1 and Plant 2, because we've got 2 large assembly halls. One assembly hall is producing the X5, X6. The other one's producing the X3 and the X4. 70% of the production that we make gets shipped outside of the United States. That makes us the largest exporter of motor vehicles in the U.S. by dollars. And this is another reason why South Carolina is so happy with us. We are now, South Carolina is the #1 exporter of motor vehicles in the U.S., surpassing even Detroit, and Michigan is down, unfortunately, down to 4th place right now. We'd like to see them in 2nd place, but yes, sir. You have something to say about that?
No, I'm just wondering how are the trade tariffs going to affect you guys?
Oh, that's a good question. At some level, the answer is we don't know exactly, but of course we're making contingency plans for different scenarios. And so it can impact us in a few ways. First, if we're exporting 70% of the vehicles, some of that production volume is going to China, for example, and so that could be a potential barrier for us. On the other hand, in the map that I showed you before, I neglected to point out the facilities that we have in China. We have the 2nd largest facility in the BMW network is in Shenyang. We have 2 plants over there as well. They are growing very rapidly, and at some point they will actually surpass us in terms of volume. So yes, the tariffs are going to impact us just like they're going to impact every vehicle manufacturer and anybody who exports. But we'll be able to play this balance when we have the large global network, production network. Thank you for the question. So here's our lineup. We've got the X3, X5, X7. They get larger and larger as they go. X7 is coming at the end of this year. The X4 and the X6 are crossover vehicles, so they sit up high, a little bit like an SUV. It feels good when you're, I think it feels great, especially the X6, when you're riding up really high, but it also performs a lot like a car. Not identical to, but very, very similar. Give it a try sometime. I think you'll be impressed. You'll especially be impressed, I think, with the motorsport versions of our X5 and X6, which have 550 horsepower engines to them. So like I said, I'll just say this one time during my presentation, not multiple times. If you don't have one of these, you should, and if I can help you get one, let me know. I don't get any commission. Door price. Really? Inspection division's going to cover that? We're very proud of our sustainability programs, our efforts over the years to reduce energy consumption, water consumption, waste to landfill. So we try to get as much of our materials delivered in returnable containers as we can. For those that we can't, we look to have as much as we can recycled, and then after that, as little as possible other types of waste. As a matter of fact, for all the other waste that we produce, it goes to waste to energy. It gets burned for energy, and so we're actually 0 waste to landfill, and we're proud of that. A couple of the other things that you'll see up here kind of in the background, this is our gas pipeline, and so even though we're not contributing to the landfill, we're taking the gas that comes off the top of the landfill, the methane. The Palmetto landfill is located about 5 miles from our plant, and we've got a pipeline that runs. There's a scrubber that scrubs the gas, sends it to us, we clean it up again, and half of the energy consumed in our plant is coming off the local landfill. And also what you see up here are the tuggers and other types of internal vehicles that we have. We have the world's largest internal fleet of hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles, and this is liquid hydrogen being pumped into the tugger here. Also associated with our facility, right across the street, our sales and marketing organization runs the BMW Performance Center. You can have a lot of fun driving around on this test track here. This is a polished concrete skid pad. We've got the sprinklers going, and then you're taught how to drift and how to come out come out of tight skids and things like that. There's also an off-road course where there's that large descent I was talking about. Customers accept, this is not only a training course, but this is also where customers can receive their vehicles. So if you do buy one of those X5s or X6s I was telling you about, you can accept delivery there. You can also get a ride and drive package for the weekend, and you can go off to the mountains, have a golf weekend with your spouse, and then also take a day on the driving course with one of our test vehicles, not your own. We have a partnership with Clemson University, ICAR, the International Center for Automotive Research. There's a lot of very interesting collaborative projects going on there, everything from robots to autonomous driving. And I mentioned about the importance of BMW and its relationship to the workforce in South Carolina. We have a number of different development programs. Of course, we have internships and co-ops. We've got a scholars program where we have people that are being trained. They work part-time, they go to school full-time, and in this way they're able to learn robotics programming and other maintenance, key maintenance roles for a specific set of needs that BMW has. Our RPM program, Road to Production Management, this is where we're taking shop floor folks and those that show potential and developing them into shop floor supervisors. That's relatively new for us. We've got our Engineering Operations Management Development Program, EOMDP. These folks come in, they're hired on, young folks are hired on, but they're not assigned a permanent role. They go through a rotation of three different jobs in the first 2 years, and they spend 8 months in each one. And then after they have a chance to see what it is that they like, having been exposed to the organization, finding out where the specific needs are, then they get placed finally in a home role. And we have the global version of that as well. All right, a little bit about quality. It's been about 2 years ago, we have a new CEO at BMW Manufacturing in Spartanburg, a gentleman named Knut Floor. And he has a phrase that he likes to use. He says, there are only 3 priorities in the plant, only 3. Quality, quality, and quality. I like working for this guy. We want quality and the customer to be the focus of everything that we do. Now, I think this slide is a little bit preaching to the choir. Quality is obviously not just a product that works the way that it's supposed to, but it's delighting the customer in how the car functions, in how the car looks, making sure that when they're buying the car, they have a premium buying experience. If they have to get the car serviced, they have a premium service experience. All aspects to quality. Let me ask you a question. It's much easier to retain a customer than it is to find a new customer. You know this, right? So what do you think the value is of a BMW customer over the lifetime? Over that person's lifetime? Take a guess. $1 million. Okay, pretty good, pretty good. We've actually gone and put some numbers, some research behind this, and you're not far off, $675,000. $675,000. Now, BMW is of course not cheap, but we do have a full spectrum of products, and repeat customers on average will bring $675,000. Here's an example. We love this guy. He's purchased $1.7 million in products from us, and he doesn't look to be all that old. And $631,000 just from the products from our plant alone. So, in terms of how it is that we manage quality at BMW, here's the general org structure for the plant. So we have our president and CEO, the production process, body shop where we're welding the parts to the metal together, paint shop where we put on the variety of coatings as well as cavity wax and some sealers, and then finally vehicle assembly. So that's the production process. We've got logistics, we've got human resources, we've got finance, the things that you would expect to have. And we have, of course, up underneath here, total vehicle quality management. But quality is not just the job of the quality department. The quality department's job is to steer quality, but it's everyone's job to do quality. So we have separate quality departments in body shop, in paint shop, in assembly shop. We have a group that's dedicated to doing total validation of the total vehicle. We've got electronics and electric validation group, design quality, materials quality. That was my first role when I came to BMW 20 years ago. We've got a group that does process audits, product audits, and we have a warranty group. So a lot of different facets to quality. In terms of our quality management system, we achieved our first certification back in 1996. We did it as standalone, ISO 9002. When we added the EMS certification a couple of years later and did that for a few years, we thought, oh, you know, it would be much easier for us if we did a combined audit, and we created our HPBM system, high performance business model. And after running this for a few years, we further thought, oh gosh, why are we having separate health and safety audits? So we combined all three together. So these days we have combined environmental, quality, and health and safety audits. We have a matrix certification, which means that we only get reviewed once every 3 years, which of course is high risk for us, because if we lose the certification, we lose certification for the entire group. Product Quality Index. So how is it that we assess a car that rolls off the end of the assembly line? We break it down into 5 categories. You see the 5 PMGs up here. So vehicle specifications, the customer provides us with what it is they expect to have on their vehicle, and we want to make sure that it matches that, obviously. We go through a series of optics and haptics testing. So optics, how does the vehicle look? You know, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong in putting a vehicle together. If you were to do an FMEA for the entire vehicle, you could come up with millions of potential errors that could go wrong. The ones that are most frequent, and not the ones that are the most severe, I mean, we of course want to pay high attention to anything that could have a safety impact, but the ones that are nagging, the ones that keep coming up again and again, are gaps, making sure that the gaps are all within BMW's tight specifications. Do the parts outside and inside the car fit together exactly the way that they're prescribed? Is everything flush? Is everything parallel? There's that one. And then there's also mutilation. And that's not the purposeful damaging of the car. That's the accidental cuts, scratches, dents, and dings from having 10,000 people get in and out of the car multiple times while we're putting it together. So we go to great lengths to make sure that nobody's wearing rings or jewelry, nobody has cell phones or keys in their pocket if they're leaning over the vehicle, that we put protective covers on the vehicle when we're not working on those particular places. We have a water leak test. We have tests for noises and smells. So every car goes through a short track test where we're listening for squeaks and rattles. A certain percentage go through a long test track. And on the smells side, does the car smell the way that it should? Does the car, if you're driving with the windows closed and you put on the windshield washer fluid, you know, can you smell it inside? You're not supposed to. Yeah. Smells are kind of interesting. So when you get a new car, do you expect it to have that new car smell? Do you look for that? Do you like that? You want a new car that has the new car smell in it. Well, you know what? If you go over to China, it's exactly the opposite. When we first tried to break into the Chinese market, the customers gave us really negative feedback. They said the cars stink, and they didn't like it. And so what we come to find out is that new car smell, which of course is coming from the outgassing of the new materials in the car, the plastics, the leather, and things like that, things that we enjoy, that we mentally associate with our lovely new car, they don't want to have. So we have to find ways to minimize that smell, and then we have to add additional scent packages for them. And things are going much better now in China. And then finally on the functionality side. So we have these tests, and if in this final product audit we were to review all tests back to back and have one person do it, it would take them a full 8 hours to conduct this process audit. So we're only looking at a small percentage of vehicles for the QZS and QZF testing. QZS, that's for the appearance of the vehicle. QZF is for the functionality of the vehicle. For everything that we note on the vehicle in these tests, it's assigned a rating of 1 to 10, with 1 being very bad, that there's an immediate safety issue, all the way up to 10 where everything is perfect. And if you take a look at some of these up here, like 8, for example, the vehicle is very good and fully meets expectations. And then after that, it's exceeds expectations and totally exceeds expectations. So it's kind of like, it might as well be a scale of 1 to 8 because nobody ever gets a 10. But in terms of where we're focusing our attention most of the time is BI5, BI6. Is it something that the customer will notice? Or is it something that because we look at cars all day and many thousands of cars and we're looking at it under bright lights, because we can notice it, is this something that the customer will actually take note of? So each one gets a severity ranking. All right. A few words about our balanced scorecard approach and how it is that we look at our business. Of course, it's the board of directors' responsibility to set the mission, the vision, the values. From there, they come up with the strategy for deployment and creating our long-term plan and our short-term plans. And then there's a 3-level process with each cascade down in the organization, with the level above it and the level below it. And so it's a negotiation, first at the board level, next at the plant level, next at the shop level, next at the department manager level. And every department has its own set of targets, in some cases even down to the individuals. We are a European-based company, so instead of the Baldrige criteria, we're following EFQM criteria. If you're not familiar with the EFQM model, the business is broken down into 9 different sections, from leadership to process to all the way to results. And therefore, our targets are as well. Here's an example of our targets. This is not all-inclusive, by the way. This is just a sampling. But you can see where they're being broken down into the different categories, the EFQM categories 6, 7, 8, 9. There are some targets up there that you would probably have expected. And we've got here our quality targets, QZF and QZS, as I was describing a couple minutes ago. GWK, that's a German acronym for warranty. So we have our targets for warranty. We've got results for people. So those are OSHA recordables, safety, society. What is our energy consumption? What is our water consumption? What is our discharge to the community? Air, water, things like that. Budget targets, process targets here. Direct pass, throughput time, rework, things like this. So looking to have a balanced approach across all of the EFQM categories. Okay, a few words about our VPS, Value-Added Production System. We've got several different approaches here. Now we've got Lean Six Sigma off to the right here, where we're running black belt projects, green belt projects, and the like. We've got lean transformation, which are large-scale lean activities that don't necessarily follow the DMAIC approach, for example, the construction of a supermarket or something like that. We've got our Kaizen program, which is part of the CREATE approach, and that's been one of our longest-running continuous improvement programs. We've got also under CREATE the Associate Suggestion System. That one has developed quite a bit over the years. Also another example of an early program that helped us to penetrate management's attention with deeper continuous improvement efforts. And then daily Kaizen, daily, immediate, on-the-spot improvements. So everything from using A3 sheets to coaching programs for the team leaders and shop floor supervisors. Here's our VPS logo, Value-Added Production. Yes, was there a question? Oh, okay. Well, they're not all necessarily groups. Let me try to give you a feel. So on the Lean Six Sigma side, we've got a central group within the plant and it's small. It's only about 5 people, but we've trained 20 waves of black belts over the last years, and so there are on the neighborhood of 350, 400 people who have been trained. Now, some of those are external. With our Six Sigma program, we offer black belt and green belt training to our suppliers. We train our supply chain. We don't charge them, by the way, but what we do expect is for their certification projects, those projects must benefit our plant. And so if you think about a Six Sigma project yielding, $250,000 or more in results, that's what we try to shoot for. It's not a hard criteria, but that's the estimate. So for every person we train, even though it's free, if we're receiving $250,000, $500,000 in benefit, it's worth it. So that's been pretty successful. So we've got a number of practitioners out there, but only a small central group. And that also encompasses the lean transformation. There is another team, the VPS team, central group that's composed of also about 4 or 5 people that's focused on this. But that's a little bit misleading because we also have practitioners in each one of the shops. Just like we have quality departments in each one of the shops, we have VPS practitioners in each one of the shops. The Kaizen program is one person, okay, who coordinates the office. However, she, over the years, along with her colleagues, have trained 150, 200 facilitators, Kaizen facilitators. Now there's about 30 or 40 who are active, but they're regularly running Kaizen. So every year we get somewhere between 50 and 100 Kaizens, which we reap the benefits from, anywhere between a few tens of thousands all the way up to a few $100,000 for each one. On the daily Kaizen side, there is no dedicated headcount for this. However, that is also misleading because this is part of our work organization, and this is something that we have intense focus on right now. So the work organization is that we put into place a structure where we can support people in doing daily problem solving. At BMW, there are some things that we do really well, and then there's some things that are opportunities for improvement for us. One of the things we do really well is we build a great product, and we take good care of our customers. One of the things that we don't do really well is we don't do systemic problem solving that well. Well, we do okay, but we could do a lot better than we do. We're an organization of firefighters. If I had to describe our culture, we are firefighters. So if there's a quality issue, the alarms go off, the firefighters come running, we stomp out the fire, and then the firefighters go on to do something else. Did they get at the root cause? Maybe, maybe not. And a lot of times what happens is that the containment stays in place or the issue ends up coming back later on. So the work organization is designed to support that. So for every production associate on the shop floor, we have a offline support person who is dedicated to helping that person do the systemic problem solving. And then there's a support structure. It's called the shell model, Schallen model in German. And first shell support, second shell support, third shell support. So this is really everybody's. And then on the associate idea system, this is one person coordinating that office. Thank you for that question. All right, so here's our VPS logo, Value Added Production System. BMW rolled this out, BMW group-wide, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And it was funny, when they did that, they said, our logo is proprietary. Don't show it outside of BMW. And I thought that was pretty funny because if you look at our logo, it's got 10 principles in it. It's designed in the shape of a wheel. There's an inner wheel, there's an outer wheel, and we've got the one in the center there. So I thought, since I give a lot of presentations like this, I thought, well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to see, who's got what principles already in their program, what's ever out there. I can just share that. And as it turns out, when I did this 10 years ago, I found 9 out of 10 of these principles over and over and over again in other production systems and other lean programs. Which one do you think I didn't find? Which one? BMW. Yeah, which one of these 10 principles that we have at BMW did I not find at that time in anybody else's production system? What do you think? Flexibility, the one that sits right in the center of ours. And so why is flexibility counterintuitive to a lean system? What do you think? Well, what flexibility means for BMW is giving the customer whatever they want, when they want it, as long as they're willing to pay for it, right? So what that implies is that if a customer says, I want, we of course will offer packages to customers, just like all automotive companies. So we'll have premium package, sport package, like that. They can pick from packages, or they can pick out whatever combinations of options that they'd like. They can pick whatever pretty, nice, or ugly combination of colors that they'd like to have on their vehicle, and different electronics options and functions and features as well. As a matter of fact, it's estimated that we can go an entire year and not build exactly the same vehicle twice because of all the different possible combinations and permutations. That doesn't end up working out that way, but there's that many possible combinations that we can have. Plus, BMW gives the customer up until 5 days before the start of production to make any changes they want on their vehicle. So imagine what a headache this is for our supply chain, that all the suppliers who are supplying parts that need to arrive in the exact order that we're building the vehicles need to have them at line side in that order at that time. Plus, make any changes that the customer decides on up to 5 days before the start of production.
So how many combinations and permutations of models you can have in that flex? Has anybody?
Yeah, it was between 400 and 500,000.
The reason I'm asking is back in the old days, the automotives had that, and it got them into a lot of trouble. And then the Japanese car manufacturers came, and you can have 3 models, basic, mid-level, deluxe, and people liked that back then. And
Mhm.
that's how they succeeded. But now I see this here and a lot of other automotive companies.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, we've improved since then because we know how to manage that flexibility. So I'm assuming that's being managed well than 30 plus years ago when the automotive, the big 4 ran into trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. So of course, where this all started, was with Henry Ford, who said, I'll build you whatever color Model T you want as long as it's black. That's right. So everything was standardized, but then we've expanded a lot from there. But yeah, we did have that negative experience. It's interesting because just within the last couple of weeks, I've been working with my wife to purchase a new car for her, and so we've been looking, for the first time in 20 years, we've been looking at a car that's different than BMW. And she's like, well, I want this, but I want this. He says, well, I don't. The salesperson says, I don't have that, and well, let me go find it. Where with BMW, you just order what you want, and then it comes later on. So that's why flexibility is at the center of our model. Let me give you a short dramatic example of that. When we were building the Z3 Roadster some years ago, we were approached by the king of a Middle Eastern country who said, for my daughter's birthday, for her 16th birthday, I want her to have a Z3 Roadster painted in her favorite color. And he gave us a copy of a sample of what her favorite color was. It was this really ugly orange color, which we didn't have, right? So we said, well, okay, we don't have this color, but we can get it. So we gave it to the supplier. Supplier said, well, okay, we could develop the color, but not only do we have to develop the color, because we don't want to take some aftermarket paint a white car, send it off to the desert, have it peel off. It's got to all be original. It's got to be BMW quality. Not only do we have to have the body paint, which we bake at high temperatures and stays on the vehicle forever, but we also have to have the paint that goes on the plastic parts for every one of the suppliers, the mirror shell paint, the bumper paint, all that good stuff. And we have to do all the qualification testing for it, the corrosion testing, the adhesion testing, all that stuff. Okay, all adds up. We said, okay, King, this is what it's going to cost. And of course, he's the king. He says, do it. So, so long story short, the princess got her car for her birthday. Never did find out what country that was, but I did find out the princess's name. Her name was Kyalami, because from then on, we called that color Kyalami orange. So that's an example of the extent that BMW is willing to go to give the customer what it is that they want. The 4 principles in the inner wheel are the principles that we use to design our processes. So it's pull, single piece flow, tact, and 0 defects. The principles on the outer wheel are the ones that we use to sustain our processes. So things like 0 waste, on-the-spot responsibility, the principle of continuous improvement, transparency, and standards. And then we've got flex, where we build everything around. Let's see, I think, well, okay. I'll take just a minute to show you this example. So this is an older example, but I specifically picked this one because it taught us two very important lessons. It was at a point where we were building the BMW X5 and the BMW X6 was going to be launched, and we were going to build it on exactly the same line. Now they're similar sized cars, but they have different parts for each one. So how are we going to take all of these parts and then put them on the assembly line in the same station all throughout the entire shop? The answer was, at least in terms of the door, now by the way, if you've never seen vehicle assembly process, one of the first things that happens is when the car comes into the assembly shop is the doors come off the vehicle. That way, because the doors are very complex and they get built up on a separate assembly line. And then later on they come back and they get married up with the exact same vehicle. It also makes it much easier to get the big parts in and out of the car, you know, the dashboard and the center console and the seats and all that stuff. Plus, you know, with thousands of people getting in and out of the car, that also helps. So the doors get built up on a separate line. And with all the parts that were going to be there for the new model, they said, we're going to have to add 31 additional workstations. And in order to, I think it was 25, 30 additional workstations. And in order for us to do this, we're going to have to expand the line, expand the door line. Well, the door line is at the very corner of the shop. There's no room. So the proposal was knock out the wall, and then there was a little cafeteria there. Knock out the cafeteria, knock out the wall, build onto it. It was going to cost $2.5 million to do this, plus $2 million in other operating costs. So here's what it looked like originally. The door line was complete. Well, let me show you what you're looking at here. The doors drop down over here after they come across the conveyor. They get built up. The assembly line goes this way, crosses over, it comes back down this way, and then at the end, they go up the conveyor and then they go back to find their original vehicle. So what the proposal was, rather than knock out the wall and spend the $2.5 million, let's create a supermarket and kitting operation. And so instead of adding adding workstations, they knocked out several here to make space for the supermarket. And this is where the parts for the doors were being kept. And then the parts for each one go into these little kits, and the kits go along with the vehicle. And it kind of looked like this, the old kits. The kits had numbered slots for them, and then the different parts went in the different places. And what's so interesting, I think, about this example is this was the very first, when we started off our VPS program 10 years ago, supermarket and kitting is something that's done at Toyota, Nissan, Honda. They've been doing it for years and years. We didn't have one example in the entire BMW network. This was not how we built cars. And our assembly folks, they didn't like this. This was new and different for them. So they wouldn't support. They wouldn't pay money for the materials for the kits. They wouldn't supply people to help put the kits together. So our team, I wasn't the lead, but our team went out, bought this corrugated plastic board, handles, duct tape. We went to a conference room and we put these things together. And we brought them out to the line, and we made this kit. And so because there are 4 doors, there are 4 kits for each car, and you see in each one of these racks there are 4 kits. So it goes to the supermarket, and then we push the cart to where the car is and put the kits by each one of the doors. And then when the carts are empty, they come back and the whole process starts over again. And you can see there's one for each one. They're color-coded here, blue, green, front, right, left, front, back. And you see the associates picking the parts for the cars there. Oh. So the kits, we ultimately were very successful with this. So, things didn't go smoothly at first. We had to work out some bugs, but eventually the kitting operation worked. We saved the $2.5 million in fixed costs, plus over time we saved the additional $2 million in operating costs. There were actually less people working online rather than more. And by the time the kits, which were very crude, wore out after about 18 months or so, the assembly folks couldn't live without it anymore. So now they paid money for some additional nicer kits. Now, to the assembly's credit, they latched on to it, and we now have so many examples of supermarket and kitting operations that where in the past we used to have black belt projects that sounded like the implementation of a new supermarket in area X. Now we have black belt projects that go elimination of supermarket in area Y, because now we use it in for every opportunity, and now we look to see where that's going to be most appropriate. So they've really latched onto it, and these days they've gone through several improvement cycles, some major ones. There have been some major Kaizen events in this area. One Kaizen event took it from a manual operation to a robotic operation, and now the kits get delivered by AGV to the line and then get returned. A few words about our CREATE system. When we first started doing continuous improvement in Spartanburg in 2002, it wasn't completely well received, but what we started off with was associate suggestion and Kaizen events. And then once the management team started to see the benefits coming back from the program, over time we were achieving $1 to $2 million in idea benefit every year from new ideas. And then about the same amount, $2 to $3 million from Kaizen events. So we would run between 50 and 100 Kaizen events each year. So once management started to see the benefits that you could get from continuous improvement, that whet their appetite and gave them a little bit more patience when we rolled out Six Sigma and when we rolled out VPS, because they saw what the opportunities were there. And I kind of hold that up as a best practice for starting continuous improvement in a new organization or in a new area. Our SIP program, Continuous Improvement Process, is our Kaizen program. We started off in a very traditional way with workshops that were about a week long on the shop floor. It's kind of funny, in my new role at Amazon, we're having the same sort of discussions now, and we're doing the traditional Kaizens there, 5 days, right there at operations. Well, where this program developed, and it developed fairly quickly, is that we started having workshops not only on the shop floor, but also in the support areas, in the indirect areas. So in purchasing, in human resources, in the planning areas. And it's continuous improvement, whether it's Kaizen or Six Sigma, is very, very effective in there as well. There is as much waste, as much opportunity for improvement in those areas by dollar as there is directly in operations. We found that. What we also found is that we don't have to take quite as long to do Kaizen events in the indirect areas. In fact, most workshops end up being in the 1 to 2 day range. The shop floor workshops have also decreased over time as well, as it becomes more and more difficult to pull people away from their jobs for extended periods of time. Again, in excess of $2 million in savings, new savings every year from this program. Here's our Lean Six Sigma Black Belt body of knowledge. I mentioned that we're on wave 20. We're also on wave 10 of our Green Belt training, and these are the tools that we're using and that we're teaching. What I tell people is that it's Lean Six Sigma, so about 40% of the content is direct statistics and Six Sigma, about 40% of it is lean content, and about 20% of it is project management. On the Black Belt program side, we also have a 5th week of training. Traditional Black Belt training is 4 weeks. We have a 5th week worth of training, and that 5th week has a soft skills focus to go along with it. There's a standalone module that we've licensed from a company called Vital Smarts called Influencer Training, so how to get results from people when there are behavior issues to be addressed. And so this has been a valuable addition to our Six Sigma lineup. Program is structured top-down. We have an executive champion, which is these days, it can move around depending on who the strongest continuous improvement champion is on the leadership team. We'll have a manager, a group of master black belts, central black belts, as well as black belts dispersed in the functional areas of the organization. We have a number of different courses to support this, in addition to the activities that we have, the projects and the programs. We have one of the things that I'm proud of is that on the Six Sigma side, we were able to push through a requirement that every exempt associate must take the basic problem-solving class. And in that basic problem-solving class, I sneak in an introduction to Minitab. So everybody, all the exempt associates, probably about 2,000 people over time, have been trained in the basics of Minitab and problem-solving and Six Sigma. On the BPS side, on the lean side, kind of the same thing. Everyone, including production associates, all 10,000 people, including contract workforce, are required to take the introduction to VPS, an introduction to lean, which we do in the form of a game, and it's called the pen game. Also, on the lean side, all exempt associates, 2,000 people, are required to have value stream mapping, even the vice presidents, because even if a vice president's not expected to be able to go out and create value stream maps, they need to be able to read them and understand them. So everyone has to be touched here. So this is an overview. This has been an overview of how BMW looks at quality, and manages continuous improvement. I hope that you were able to take away some golden nuggets of things that you can use back in your business, and I thank you very much for your attention. And I think we still have a few minutes, so before we close, I'm happy to take a few questions, if there are any.
Why only the training for the suppliers and for insights of the company on the black belt and lean methodology? Why not to bring more people from outside of the automotive world?
Outside of the automotive world?
Yeah.
What would be the benefit for BMW, do you think?
Well, to expand the knowledge.
So for the benefit of the community?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think that that's a great idea, and to tell you the truth, we do a little bit of that. We're in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and we had a small group of people from an organization called SAM come through our training. SAM is Spartanburg Academic Movement, and this is a group that's dedicated to organizing community resources to improve the number of people who have had college level training up to 40% in our community. So we realized, the community leaders realized that we were lagging behind a little bit. It was in the low 20s a couple of years ago, and the target is to achieve 40%. And so we trained a couple of black belts in programs to help enable this program. The first person who came through, I was her coach, and her focus was on achieving kindergarten readiness. So in order to get to college degrees, the key enablers were seen as being ready for kindergarten, being proficient at a certain level at 3rd grade math, 8th grade reading, or was it reverse? 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, and then finally graduating high school. So there were programs set up to hit each one of these milestones, and so I worked together with her on developing a kindergarten readiness team. And so we had a group of over 20 key stakeholders from the community. We had teachers, we had administrators, we had parents, we had people involved in preschool programs, and it was so much fun leading them through a SIPOC diagram. You know, so who are the customers of our kindergarten readiness process in the community? And that was a big impact. One more quick example I'll give you is that we're very proud that we co-sponsor, along with USC Upstate and ACA Credit Acceptance and the local hospital, Spartanburg Regional Healthcare, that we sponsor a 2-week summer camp, which is 2-week summer camp in continuous improvement, ends up looking a lot like Six Sigma Greenbelt training. So we do Six Sigma Greenbelt training for high school kids. Plus, as part of that program, they get to come into the plant, get a plant tour, and they also get a chance to drive the vehicles out on the Performance Center course. So we encourage this. We also, in addition to black belt and green belt training, we encourage suppliers to participate in those daily trainings that I was describing to you, value stream mapping, problem solving, but we do get some community folks involved as well. Yes, sir. Oh.
So
Thank you, Eric. Are similar or same activities being conducted in all these other worldwide BMW locations?
Mhm. So the VPS program is being done across the BMW production network. So similar programs are being done in Munich, Regensburg, Dingolfing, South Africa, Shenyang, all over the place. Six Sigma, on the other hand, is something specific to our plant. Now, there are Six Sigma practitioners elsewhere in the BMW network, but this is the greatest concentration, and the only formal program is located locally. Something else that we're proud of. Over here.
You mentioned influence training to deal with stubbornness. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Uh-huh. Well, I didn't say stubbornness specifically, but yes, that's part of it as well. So leading without authority. You know, leading a Six Sigma team, usually cross-functional. Very rarely, do you have direct authority over the people working on your team. Plus, in addition to that, a lot of times, so if you're working on the shop floor and you do a fishbone diagram, you do your brainstorming, you do a fishbone diagram of root causes. You do the 6 M's, man, method, machine, materials, Mother Nature, measurement. Which branch of that fishbone diagram usually has the most points on it? Anybody? Which one? Machine? Well, if you live in like our body shop, that would be true. But if you're in the assembly shop, it's usually person. It's usually man or woman. So that's the biggest one. So how do you influence somebody's behavior? Now, we have ways of doing that, but the influencer training that we conduct is geared specifically towards that. It's done by a company called Vital Smarts. We've licensed their material. I recommend them. Over here.
Going back to your best customer example, your favorite customer purchased looked like maybe a new car every year. Does BMW have a life expectancy for the new vehicles, or when do they try to bring their customers back? How often, whether years or miles on the car, and what do you do with the vehicles that are too old, like sustainability, recycling, or reselling in different markets?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of different questions there. So I don't know that there's a specific target for how often a customer should come back. Of course, we want them to come back as often as possible. A lot of our lease programs will run 3 years. So 3 years comes up, you finish your lease, and then you take a new vehicle. But as you see, that there are like that gentleman, for example, he comes in more often than that. I don't know, maybe he's buying cars for his family as well. So what happens to the vehicles? So if you return, like, say, a lease vehicle that only has a few miles on it, it becomes a certified pre-owned vehicle. So it gets checked out, gets cleaned up, and then gets resold as a used certified pre-owned vehicle with all the guarantees that go along with that. In terms of what happens when a vehicle becomes too old. Now, it's not a requirement here in the U.S., but it is a requirement in Europe that when a vehicle reaches the end of its life, that everything on it needs to be recyclable. And so that's the target for our vehicles as well. So to give you an example, a few years back when this law came about, there was an issue with one of the coatings. And the coatings contained a small amount of a lead component, but that component is not allowed to go to landfill or into any of the recycle processes. So we had to come up with a way to remove that. So, good question. All right. Well, we're just about out of time, so I'll be around. And during the break, I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
I'd like to thank Eric for his time.
Thanks,
Great
Eric.
presentation, Eric, and we'll have a small award for recognition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next session is at 10:15, and have a great day, everyone.